All right, well, thank you for joining. My name is Bill Cisco. I am a Principal Transportation Engineer here at PTV America. I'm based out of our Portland, Oregon office, and I'm happy to be here today to present this episode of PTV Talks. So basically today we're going to cover 5 key reasons to change to PTV Vistro. I'm not sure if you're new to the software or if you're a seasoned user, but either way, it will either be some very new informative information or a really nice way to recap why you use and love PTV Vistro. So we'll go through these one by one in our reasoning. So the first reason for changing to Vistro is robust analysis methods and computations. So I'm going to highlight what Vistro has to offer. Kind of the reverse side of that same coin might touch on some limitations with other competitor software, but we'll keep it nice and positive towards what Vistro has to offer. And that's kind of the flow of how today's webinar will go. Okay, so a recap to remind ourselves of what methods are in PTV Vistro and how it stands apart. We do have the HCM 7th edition, which is newly released by TRB this year. We had a previous webinar on that earlier this year for Vistro's implementation of the 7th edition with such great features now for signalized intersections and roundabouts, where you can plan and analyze the effects of CAVs in your network at various penetration rates and how that affects saturation flow rates and capacities. So if you have not already, please take a look at that webinar and start implementing the 7th edition within Vistro. We maintain all the previous HCM editions, 6th edition, 2010, and 2000. And of course, we have everything customizable for you to make it localized to your traffic conditions and driver behaviors within the scope of what can be localized and edited within an HCM analysis. But a couple key things that are key points for Vistro is that we support all approach lane configuration types, including when there are shared and exclusive turns. You can have up to 8-leg approaches, and we can handle NEMA and non-NEMA phasing through our flexible RBC controller and our sequence editor, which you'll see in the screenshot on this screen, that you can have up to 4 rings and 8 barriers within the signal setup and analysis within PTV Vistro. Additionally, if you're in an area that uses other methods, we have a lot of other analysis methods built into Vistro, including the Canadian Capacity Guide. We teamed with the Canadian ITE a few years ago to implement a version of the CCG that's available in a commercially available modern software interface. So if you are in Canada, please consider utilizing the CCG methodology that's built within Vistro. Additionally, there's some methods that are still in practice that are based more on critical movements, and I'll call out the ICU, or intersection capacity utilization, because we've had some questions about that recently. Just to highlight that our implementation builds off of or implements the original ICU published methodologies, meaning that there was versions around prior to a competitor creating their own version of ICU years ago. And so if you're looking for the implementation that used in many parts of areas like California for planning level studies, please utilize the ICU 1 or 2 versions within Vistro for a level of service A through F ability. Also, we don't produce error messages, that we can analyze all sorts of intersection configurations, and Vistro also will calculate the intersection V over C, going through that critical pathing of the different movements based on the phasing. And that is part of the highway capacity manual. We implement that, and that is a measure of effectiveness that can be calculated and is reported by Vistro, the intersection level V over C for HCM. Roundabouts, in addition to the HCM methods, we also have a UK method for Kimber which is based on more empirical and geometric data. And so you might find that useful if you want to branch out from HCM for roundabout analysis. So what you won't see in Vistro are these types of error messages about not being able to analyze certain phasing or certain hold phases or more than 4 approaches. You can analyze it all in PTV Vistro. I'm not going to go live and show all of these things today. We have a repository in the PTV Talks archives that goes through all of that, and I'm also happy to meet with anybody at any time to do Teams meetings and present how Vistro implements these various methods. All right, so some other aspects on pedestrian analysis that's implemented in Vistro with our MOEs for PEDs, like corner circulation area, crosswalk circulation area, delays, the pedestrian perception score from the quality of service research and associated LOS, as well as the other items that you see on your screen, make it very thorough and robust analysis opportunity for you to analyze pedestrians within Vistro. Also in our phasing diagram, as you'll see here, it can visualize the leading pedestrian interval, which we call a delayed vehicle green, that you can enter directly in the traffic control table in Vistro. And also these were demonstrated live in a previous PTV Vistro talks on multimodal analysis, but highlighting our unique implementation here where it can be done directly without having to add special hold phases by entering in the delayed vehicle green, seconds of green directly, and how that can then be shown in the phasing diagram below to represent the LPIs. You can also, as you can see, visualize crosswalks on our network and PED phasing in the phase diagram. From a bicycle perspective, we implement all the bicycle MOEs as well. That includes capacity, delay, the bicyclist user perception score, again from the quality of service research, and can also analyze within the RBC bicycle phasing, and you can model cycle tracks. And we also had gone through all of that in detail in our multimodal webinar that is in our archives. And there's some screenshots here and how that might look if brought from Vistro into VSIM to show the bicycle facility converted. Additionally, from a transit perspective, within Vistro, you can begin to analyze effects of transit, not just in the traditional ways of how transit vehicles affect automobiles through saturation flow adjustments based on close proximity bus stops, but also looking at setting up things like separate transit lanes for queue jumps and so forth. While there might be certain things that can only be analyzed outside or beyond HCM, Vistro allows you to create those model codings as shown in these screenshots that can then be utilized later for simulation in VSIM. And so here's one with a separate bus priority queue jump. All right, well, we're gonna have a series of polls throughout this to make this interactive as well. So we're gonna go ahead and get your input on our first 2 polls now. All right, so we'd like some feedback on what analysis method that you use most of the time. However you want to define most is fine. Technically, it's 51% or more, but we just want to get some feedback. Are you utilizing HCM 7th edition yet? Are you using 6th edition or 2010? Maybe HCM 2000? Or how about the Canadian Capacity Guide? Or some older critical movement methods that are great for planning purposes like ICU or Circular 212. Please go ahead and enter your values now. And hopefully with what you've seen previously today, you'll see that through a tool like Vistro, you can analyze using newer versions of the HCM without getting error messages that stop you from being able to analyze certain intersection configurations. And please know, the HCM allows an intersection average V over C. It is not in the HCM. Don't you love double negatives? All right, we'll give you a few more seconds on that, and then we can publish that poll. All right, well, this is pretty encouraging, pretty evenly spread there from the HCM perspective with those in attendance today. It doesn't surprise me that most are in 6th edition or 2010 still, because 7th is relatively new. I know the electronic version is for sale. I'm not sure if TRB is actually shipping the paper version or not yet, but I'm sure throughout the rest of the year and into next year, it will become more and more common. Thank you for your feedback on that. Let's go ahead and look at our second poll. All right, when it comes to analyzing other modes, just a quick poll here about how often or what level that you evaluate and analyze pedestrians, bikes, or transit, and either that you don't or that you do from a basic perspective where you're not modifying the signal itself. So one of the things Vistro, for example, with pedestrians besides LPI, you can do exclusive pedestrian phases and put those into sequence, or with, as I was mentioning, with the bicycle, that you can model bicycle signal phases as well. But if you don't do those things, then that would be kind of a more basic ped, bike, and transit analysis, or do you utilize more detailed analysis where you're modifying the actual signal to reflect field conditions, maybe in a very urbanized environment that has bicycle signal heads and so forth? We'll give you about 15 seconds to answer that one, and then we'll show the results. All right. Well, not bad, pretty evenly spread. You guys can see the results there. And I guess I'm a little surprised at the not at all. I would have thought that to be a little bit less, and then the middle one to be a little bit more, but hey, no problem. Thank you for your feedback. Good to know. All right, well, with that, we'll go back to our presentation. So we talked about reason 1. Now we can look at reason 2, efficiently integrated workflows. It's one thing to say that we can do things, it's another to weave them together seamlessly. So just as a reminder, again, all the details of these are in prior PTV talks, but part of what Vistro offers in terms of the integration of the workflows with your network setup and analysis tasks, our scenario manager, doing impact analysis or traffic optimization, running some quick mitigation tests, and doing some reporting. So we're just going to spend a few minutes refreshing our memory, or maybe this is your first time seeing this. In terms of the integration, of course, with Vistro, one of the great things is how the data entry tool, or the tables on the right, tie directly with the network elements in the network window on the left, and that we have a left to right, top to bottom approach. Don't you just love that? That's what I remember how I learned to read in primary school. Left to right, top to bottom, and that's what we implement in Vistro. So we make it very nice and guided and easy to use. So just a couple notes on the scenario manager. If you haven't used it, I mean, you're looking at some support questions that come in or things that I see. There's still some of our users out there who are making separate files. I would really like to push you away from that because you're not taking the benefits that are inherently there in our integrated way that we handle scenario management. So just as a quick reminder that we have an easy to use scenario manager. You see a screenshot of that below, the center pull down box, and it shows in the white box what your active scenario is. All Vistro files start with a base scenario. And that base scenario is a special case. You can always go back to it later and make an update that will then ripple through and affect all your other scenarios if it hasn't already been locally changed. So for instance, you're running 6 scenarios and you find out that you miscoded a right turn, and you can go back to the base scenario, make the edit there, and then have that automatically update through all of your other 6 scenarios. Everything then gets stored in one single Vistro file, and it makes life as simple as can be while you're doing traffic analysis. Also like to point out, we had a previous talk about our merge and update tools, but it's another way that it ties in with the scenario manager. So you can use that to also update things and apply them across multiple locations and scenarios as well. So that's one aspect of our workflows. The other is, of course, our transportation impact analysis tools. This is just a screenshot here, circled in red, of what we saw earlier on the left to right approach for the various workflow items. But just to highlight that in Vistro, these are truly integrated. Your trip generation is what you see here. A little spoiler alert, we have an announcement next month that I'll wait until then to make, but we're gonna make trip generation even easier for you in terms of being able to access the most common source of trip generation data and have that tie directly into Vistro. So please look for that announcement. I'm sure you will get emails, and we'll do a PTV Talks. And if you're going to the ITE annual meeting in New Orleans, please visit us at our booth. We will be doing some demonstrations of that new trip generation tool at that point in time. So just to continue this workflow discussion quickly, of course, with all of these being integrated, the beauty of it is that anytime you make an update beyond your initial inputs, everything is done at the click of a button. So if you tab out and make a change, all of your assignments and all of your intersection analysis are updated as well. Lastly, I'd just like to point out from these workflows are the integrated nature of the fair share. So whether or not you have something more sophisticated than a fair share analysis for allocating mitigation responsibility, you can still use the fair share analysis to track trips by specific project type. And in Vistro, all of that is tracked through our reporting within the network graphic, as you see here, or within our PDF outputs. For signal optimization, it's all truly integrated as well. This is stuff that I'm sure you're very well familiar with, but I didn't want to leave it out. That we have a flexible path or route-based optimization tool. And on the subject of reports, look at that beautiful report 3 over on the graphical figure for the bubble diagram with turning movement diagrams and your traffic control device. For every possible thing you can think of, volume-wise, we have a graphical report. No need to use AutoCAD, freehand, or any of the other popular tools. The beauty is integrated, so there is no loss of data moving from the analysis tool to your graphical software as well. All right, so just want to highlight that integration, and then look at this beauty. Our screenshot of what you can post live in the network, showing volumes, showing phase numbers or signal control, signal group numbers, showing your delays color-coded by level of service and your control types, and also those blue bars, every engineer's dream, queues that do not overflow the storage. Let's go ahead and look at polls 3 and 4, one at a time, please. Okay, talking about the ability to do multiple scenario management in a single file. How many scenarios do you typically analyze when you perform traffic studies? 2 or less, 3 or 4, 5 or 6, 7 or 8, or 9 plus? Give you about 10 more seconds on that one. All right. Thanks for your input. And 75% are between 3 and 6 scenarios. So good to see. Great. All right, let's go on to poll number 4. Okay, so one of the things I didn't specifically mention, but has to do with import and export capabilities. So let's ask the question, how often do you import or export your networks to or from these deterministic type softwares like Vistro? Deterministic/analytical, synonymous with HCM. Never, sometimes, often, always. Now, if you've been to marriage counseling, you know never to use the word never and always, okay? That's just not a good way to have interpersonal relationships, whether it's with your spouse or anybody else. So hopefully the answers are sometimes or always, or sometimes or often, because that really lets you have a little out in whatever type of relationship you're in. And it gives the other person some room to hear what you're saying without feeling cornered and like they don't have a voice. All right, so that's Bill's Psychology 101 for today. But let's go ahead and see these results. All right. Well, I guess it's okay if you never import or export. Just remember my tips for relationships. But a lot of you sometimes will import or export, and Vistro allows that. So again, on the network side, we import OSM stuff as well, or from demand models such as Vizum. And on the simulation side, as you saw in some of those screenshots earlier, like with that Q-jump lane or the bike cycle tracks, we export and import into vSim. And if you haven't done that in a while, our tools have gotten more and more refined within the last couple versions of Vistro. And so I think you'll really love what you see. All right, let's go ahead and get back into our presentation. Okay, well, let's get into some other reasons to change. We'll move away from the traffic engineering and transportation planning, and we'll go into some of the more like other aspects that can really make life miserable in some cases, or make life pretty sweet in other cases. So let's start with some sweetness, equitable licensing. All right, let's talk about how Vistro has equitable licensing. So if you haven't already used Vistro, this is news to you. If you have, then hey, you already love it for this reason. Basically, the whole way that Vistro or any of our software is licensed really is with this concept of simultaneous users in mind. No need to buy and dedicate licenses to people or their machines that aren't using them at a certain time, or hoarding them. Hoarders. I was a hoarder. I was a hoarder of a different software when I was a consultant because it was so hard to give it up because I might not see it again for a month. But you don't have to worry about that with Vistro. No hoarding needed. In Vistro, you install it once and no need to remove it, even if you're not actively using your license and somebody else is using it. When you're ready to use it again, just reactivate the license. So it's as simple as that. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like technically. So with our new, realize some of you may have older licensing from us that include hard locks and so forth. That's totally fine. I'm highlighting our newer licensing and activation steps today, but the spirit is the same. So, and if you're new to Vistro or PTV software licensing, then I think you really like what you're going to see. When you want to activate, you have the license installed, you go into our license manager, there's a simple plus button to activate the license. At that point, you enter in the license key that we provide to you via email, and you click the next button, and then you activate it on your computer. And then after you wait for the process to be completed, activation process successfully finished, a nice clear message for you, you can press close, and then you're ready to go. Start using Vistro. Press the start button. Now, what happens if somebody else needs that license within your organization and within the user agreement? Then there's some steps that you can take without having to contact PTV at all, and you're in control of your own destiny here. And so it's some deactivation steps. You can go back to your friend, the license manager, and highlight your license. There's the minus button. You can deactivate and press close. And then at that point, make that available to your coworker. All right, so that is our simple and equitable PTV Vistro licensing steps. Let's look at poll number 5. What's your impression of Vistro's software licensing? Please respond. We'll give you 10 more seconds. All right. The only wrong answer was to not participate. So thank you all for your input. And yeah, hopefully what you see is that we strive to make our licensing as friendly and as easy to manage from the user side as possible, and to be as fair, equitable, and economical as possible as well. All right, we'll move back into the presentation. Let's look at reason number 4 to change to Vistro: affordable pricing. So if you haven't already visited our new ptv.to/Vistro website, please do so. There's some really great information on there. This screenshot shows a section with our new promotional subscription pricing packages, and they start with a 1-month commitment, or a 6-month, or a 12-month at varying price levels. I think you'll find all these to be quite attractive. Don't worry if you're already a Vistro user and you have one of our perpetual licenses, your annual maintenance is still less than any of these subscriptions. But for those of you wanting to add licenses or try Vistro out, these are some great subscription options for you, as low as $99.99 a month or $999.99 for 12 months. What will it take for me to put you into a subscription of Vistro today? That's the question. But hopefully what you'll find are some attractive license subscription pricing options there. And the whole process can be completed on our website. There's the Order PTV Vistro Now button. And hopefully you'll find that to be beneficial. One of the things, in all seriousness, when it comes to doing these types of studies, while we know that there will be folks who need to have a tool such as Vistro day in and day out, we also know that a lot of the work in these types of tools are done on a project basis. And part of the reasoning for this subscription model is to make it as easy as possible for our customers to add licenses for perhaps short periods of time for certain crunch times as their project workloads increase, and then to allow those to to retract back if times are not as robust in terms of your project work, and it's all through subscription basis, and you can pick right back up. The other key point that I have a few questions on as we were starting to talk about our subscription options is that you never lose access to your data, right? Like, all of these are still controlled as a desktop application. The licensing is done as you pay and get access to these activation codes remotely, but all of your software, while you have access to it, occurs locally. Your files occur and get stored and saved locally. So you don't have to worry about losing access to all of your hard work. Sorry, you might lose access to it, but you won't lose the file. And once you have access again through renewing your subscription, then you can jump right back in where you left off, and you can always share your data with others as well. Okay, let's look at poll number 6. How important is overall pricing to your software decision making? All right, I think I wrote that a little wrong. Me usually speak good English, but today not so much. How important is pricing overall to your software decision making? Is pricing mildly, somewhat, very, or critically important? And maybe you can answer this and refine it to this type of a tool, right? Not something that costs 10 times as much, but something that is within this band of traffic engineering and transportation planning tools. Just like to get some feedback. We'll give you 10 seconds. All right. Nice spread there. Thank you for your feedback. Of course, with these stated preference type questions on pricing, I always wonder when I get that question, well, geez, if I answer a certain way, then maybe it'll help. At any rate, I have a nice anecdote, and I'll leave everything generic. But when I was a consultant, we were doing a managed lanes project and taking polls of multinational corporations for how much money they would spend potentially to save travel time to deliver their goods. And boy, it was surprising how low importance travel time was when the question had to do with how much money they would pay for that option. So any rate, it's human nature. But any rate, you guys, this is great. Nice spread. It's good for us to know. And thank you for your feedback. Let's go ahead and get back into our presentation. We're working our way through. All right. We've talked about the robust methods. We've looked at the integrated workflows, talked about our awesome licensing and pricing. I cannot let this presentation go without talking about our superior support and technical resources. You saw some of that already when we talked about the ptv.to/learn. Let's go ahead and visit a little bit of our support portal. Just to remind everyone, this is relatively new on our website, and you can access this page from the ptv.to/learn and click on the PTV support. Help desk portal, there's a nice video that helps you get set up if you don't already have your PTV account. But all your subscriptions and licenses, of course, have unlimited technical support via this portal. We have a dedicated staff of traffic engineers and other technical professionals to answer your questions and take care of your needs in a quick turnaround. Let's look at some more. Screenshot from our technical resources hub, ptv.to/learn, and all of our PTV talks inventory there, as well as our self-guided training resources through what we label as PTV Academy, and things that we mentioned earlier at the beginning, and also the PTV support portal can be accessed through this ptv.to/learn. When you enter this into a browser, just type ptv.to/learn. Don't put the www in front. Don't put https:// in front. Just ptv.to/learn, and it will take you there. And as it says in the red box, explore for free. It's all available. Customer already? Great. Not a customer yet? Have fun exploring. I think you'll like what you see and you want to become one. If you go back, you can access it from the previous page as well through the PTV Talks button. But if you go back to the ptv.to/vistro webpage, same thing, just enter that directly into the address browser, and you can scroll down, and we have all of these resources to learn how to use Vistro for free on basics, setting up your network, analyzing your intersections, doing optimization, looking at all the multimodal analysis that we briefly discussed today, but in much more robust and in-depth nature, the TIA tools. How about innovative interchanges and alternative intersections? We have a great webinar showing diverging diamonds, R-cuts, M-cuts, DDIs, ABC, XYZ, any of the above. We can do it. Evaluating urban design concepts and all the details of the signals, roundabouts, all-way stops, and two-way stops from HCM are available to you through our portal of our PTV Vistro learning tools. So please explore those if you haven't already.